Last time you were on the show, Mondo, we talked about your book, The Red Heifer, and we were informed by you that that was a plastic altar and it wasn't real, the one we had up. So we took that down. So thanks for that.
Yes, we did. We
Yeah,
took that down quick.
yeah.
Yes, we did.
So yeah, this is why we have other people on to fix us. So we want to know what's up with the red heifers. You got any updates on that?
There is a few updates. We see that it has been, uh, at least officially, the cows are in Shiloh, at least officially. That's the story. And then there's a woman there, Moria, who is kind of the head director of the education there at Shiloh, which is where the tabernacle stood. So the visitor center there, if people go to Israel today, they can go over there and take a look. And he has been sharing that three now of the cows have been officially disqualified. So there's two
Oh,
left, two remaining. So and of course, they're very reluctant to speak about qualifying because the fact of the matter is that the cows, any sort of qualifying is preliminary because they were to have the ceremony 10 days from now, as an example, they would have to do a fresh analysis on the moment
hmm.
before to make sure that it was appropriate at the time of the ceremony. So, but we do see that, so that's interesting. We know as well that the other three cows, I mean, all these cows were $100,000 each, so they're not going to go out there and
Oh,
make brisket and have an expensive steak from the cow. They will put them in the breeding program because the genetics are still there for a
mm.
red, and so they'll put those in the Israeli breeding program, which is there. We know that there's still a couple dozen red Angus back in Texas that are being
So that dude made a
leased.
$500,000 selling those cows.
Yep, and it cost them another 250,000 to ship them on
Ooh,
American Airlines plane. So again,
Wow.
this was an expensive thing, and so there was a Twitter or X post here in the last few days by his name is Yagal, And so, anyways, he's a journalist who was part of the Knesset actually,
Mm.
and he made a post. He had a picture of Rabbi Ariel up in a place in the old city with the Temple Mount as well as the Mount of Olives in the background. And there's a picture of a cow that is there, and then he's there with what looks like one of the priests, and
Mhm.
they're basically doing a practice ceremony. So people again falsely were saying, "Oh, here it is. The ceremony is about ready to take place." No, they're just doing a practice run
Mm.
on it because what we do know is that the place it has to happen on the Mount of Olives.
Mhm.
So with the Mount of Olives in the background, obviously wasn't happening at that moment because it was in the background where they were in the old city. You can tell by the background geography. But the other thing too is that a lot of people have asked is could they perform the ceremony in secret? And the answer is absolutely not. It'd be impossible because the location on the Mount of Olives, if anybody has been there, this is a very heavy Arab area. It's very densely populated. And so imagine for a moment that you get out there and you start burning this cow with a big bonfire. I mean, this is a big bonfire. So, I mean, there's going to be
all
smoke.
right.
People are going to call the police. They're going to call the fire department. They're going to go,
Yeah.
oh, there's a fire.
Yeah,
So
nothing to
there's,
see here. You
yeah,
guys go
there's
back home.
no way. There's no way they could do it secretly because then the next thing the police are going to show up and there'd be an Arab riot
Hmm.
because the Arabs are being inflamed by Hamas because they made the claim in January, as most people know, that one of the reasons they attacked in October was because of the cows. So it's definitely not going to happen in secret. And let me just say one last thing. This is kind of fun because I live in a conspiracy world, and I would say that most conspiracies, not most, a lot of conspiracies are actually fact. So in this sense, I had a friend who was in Shiloh a few weeks ago, and I saw this with several people actually that were there. And so he was like, I was up there petting the cows. Now think about that. Online, they're saying that they're under heavy security.
Hmm.
But he went up there to pet the cows. He
Yeah.
was told, "Hey, you can't pet the cows." But the fact of the matter is, the fact that he was close enough to pet the cows, he could have taken a razor blade
Yep.
and didn't have to kill the cow. He
Oh,
could have thrown a blanket
yeah.
over the cow, which now that would it's not allowed to have anything on its back or a yoke. So
Mm.
Hmm.
I'm actually a little skeptical.
Or maybe a little
Uh,
bleach.
that too, absolutely. I don't know this for sure. Again, I'm speculating, but I'm skeptical that those are the legitimate cows. I actually think they
Ah.
might be
Uh,
decoys.
Okay.
If they're not decoys, then this is one of the most this is the worst security that you could ever imagine after spending $500,000. Think about that. Where
Yeah.
a stranger can walk up and pet the cow. I mean, to me, something's askew there. And so maybe it's just bad security, but I find that highly doubtful.
Oh
I just
man.
think that it's kind of crazy that Hamas claimed that that's one of the reasons why they invaded Israel. If they don't believe uh, in Jews, if they don't believe in God, I mean that covers both the Jews and the Christians. If they don't believe in our God, then why are they so scared of? I mean,
Yeah.
I just don't get it.
Well, I don't think they're
If I'm
scared.
not scared of somebody's,
Mhm.
like I'm not scared of their God at all. You know,
Yep.
so they can do whatever they want to. I don't really care. It's not going to impact my life, and it's not going to impact my eternity. So I don't know why they're so worried about it if they don't really believe in
I don't know if
our
it's
God.
they're worried about it as their MO is let's find a reason to fight. And
Yeah.
well, one of the best memes I saw that in this month so far was, it's called The Last Arab, and he's got a sword in his foot and a sword in his hand, and he's fighting himself. Because that's what they do. The Bible says he's going to be a brawler, right? That's what the Lord said. Hey, this kid Ishmael, he's going to be a brawler. What can I tell you? And here we are. They're, what, 4,000 years later, and they're still brawling.
4,000.
Yeah,
4,000 years.
jeez, 4,000 years. Such a crick
I
in the
think
neck.
too. I'll just make one comment for what Joel said is that it's we know that the Jews or the Hamas does not need a reason to kill Jews. So their
Mm,
propaganda, they're good at propaganda. So when they said that
Mhm.
in January, it was a few months later, but we also know as well that the, the fact of the matter is, as it relates to the red heifers, um, they're trying to maintain the status quo. And whenever there's an advancement of the red heifers, and then you see you see like Itamar Ben Gavir, the security minister, national security minister, as soon as they went into power in December of 22, he immediately went up on the Temple Mount. He was actually just had
Yeah.
he had a little conference on the Temple Mount a couple weeks ago, which was condemned by a whole bunch of people, all the people in the ministry. But he's trying to change the status quo because he says, and I think he's right, there's discrimination. The Jews can't pray, the Christians can't pray, but the Muslims can. So why
Mhm.
is it? And sometimes even if you're a Christian, you can pray. It's not as stark, but he's trying to change the status quo of the Temple Mount itself, and that's what they're trying to keep from happening as it relates to Hamas and even the Palestinian Authority.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Well,
So,
let me ask you this real quick. They He supposedly went back there again just here in the last day or two during this. David, what I never can
Tisha
say it.
B'Av.
You're going to have to say.
Yeah,
And Netanyahu came out and said that he criticized it. He came down hard on it, like you're messing stuff up. I'd like your input on any of that.
well, again, what we see is on Tisha B'Av, this was the greatest outpouring of Jewish presence on the Temple Mount, really in history,
mm,
in the sense of a single day, and I think there was close to 2,000 people that had gone up there. And the reason why Netanyahu was upset, I don't think Netanyahu really cares about the Palestinian plight in the sense of the Temple Mount, but he's a politician and he has a war to fight. And I would say rightfully so. He has a war to fight for the existence of Israel. It's an existential threat, what's happening right now. And he also knows that he has tremendous pressure right now and disagreements from the Biden administration. And
mm,
so he has to play the part to show that when you have these inflammatory actions like Ben Gavir is doing, one of his own ministers of the government. And again, the government is held together very, very loosely. I mean, it could be split up in a moment. All you'd have to do is have one of these right religious groups withdraw their support, and the whole government would collapse. So he has to do his part. He's got to at least state publicly, "Hey, this is wrong. This is wrong." Privately, he could say, "Hey, look, Ben, I agree with you. Go ahead and do it, but I'm going to condemn you publicly." So who knows what they're doing? He has to posture himself to at least be able to resist against American pressure because they're waiting. They need weaponry for this war against Hamas, as well as the overall broad war of Lebanon, and even the potential war of Iran. So he's got to do this stuff publicly, whether he officially believes it or not. He's a politician. At the end of the day, he's a politician. I actually think he's good for Israel right now because he's standing strong and he knows what needs to happen. And Hamas has to be decimated. Not a single one left. It has to happen.